the things you're on with, which I think is great. You decided not to release any singles for Kid A.
Yeah. No point.
Do you want people to respond to the album as a whole?
No, I don't think it's really preciousness like that sort of thing.
Okay.
I think really it was just singles are completely whack and they smell.
They smell.
They smell bad.
But you know, there's no song on this album that for you would stand out as a single. Or
I think you can release most of them really, but
yeah.
I kind of think that there's no point in the current climate. I'd much rather go off and do 12 inches and stuff like that, which is what we'll do next, I think.
Do you want radio promoters or people in the radio industry?
I want them to have a hard time
picking a song by themselves.
They'll do it anyway. Who cares? You know?
Yeah.
Whatever. They'll do what they do what they do. You know. But I'm not interested.
Do you wish you could have done that before, like that format of saying no singles, no this, no that, or is this the right time to do it now, or do you wish you could have done it before, maybe?
God knows. It's like a business thing, really. It's a business decision. I don't think we didn't really. I think at the moment, like the whole chart thing is like it's just not appropriate for us. It'll do us no good being up there with whatever is. What's her name? I can't remember her name. Strange girl, American, quite young.
Britney Spears.
That's it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm not about to dress up in my cheerleader outfit.
I can't imagine.
No.
In a schoolgirl, Thom in a schoolgirl outfit. No, I don't think that'll work.
No. So there you go.
Let's talk a little bit about the album and the songs, how they came together, how they came alive, and how they were maybe transformed a little bit from their original songs. How did that work out? Because the sound in this album is so unique.
It was quite weird. I mean, we lost interest in playing guitar, which was a fundamental stumbling block for essentially what was a rock band. But we bought all these different instruments, and I think a lot of it was really working through the night, experimenting a lot, having our own studio, and trying to pursue whatever it was that's up there until you hear it, which took a considerable amount of time, and was extremely frustrating, like these things always are.
I did notice that on the album the guitars are used unconventionally, if I can say, if that makes any sense, or they're a little buried or very subtle. You did use them after all, even though you said that you lost. Did you have to sort of regain an interest or rekindle like some sort of an interest towards guitar music? How did that?
Well, no, I don't. I mean, I still don't think I'm interested in guitar music anymore. I might get into it again, but I think that I have a problem with playing any instrument for the sake of it. I'm more interested in. I think a lot of what changed in the way that we worked is it became less about standing in a room with 5 people, sort of whooping up, you know what I mean, like you would do in a live situation, like you, and much more about people going off on their own, experimenting, and bringing things in, and then editing, which is like a totally new thing for us, where you generate material and then you edit it together, and then you generate some more and you edit that, and it's like comes like editing a film. And depending on how you put a chord with another chord, you know, you totally change the plot. But you don't have to stand in a room and do that. You're doing it like on the computers and things. So it was all about like learning how to use all these things that we've been really anti before, like samplers and well, not anti-samplers, but anti like.
Not familiar with, maybe.
Yeah.
We put together our own studio, which we finally got into last September, and I think the idea behind that was so that we'd be able to go in there and actually, as Thom said, you know, experiment, actually just try out new ways of working together, which we'd never been able to do before, because, you know, we were always, you know, somebody else's studio, you're always very aware that the clock's ticking away and you're mounting up these huge costs. And also, you know, you're not in your own environment, really. I think we've created something there. Put together something there which is, I don't know, somewhere halfway between somewhere you work and somewhere that's quite homely, so I think we feel comfortable working there.
What was the ambience like in the studio?
Well, it changed a lot. We had like the first place we went to was Paris, which was a washout, completely disaster. Yeah.
Why?
Well, it felt like that at the time. Actually, we produced a couple of things that were really good, but at the time it felt like that. Just because, you know, we felt like nothing was working, but then we couldn't judge because we were all in a really weird headspace. Yeah. And then we went to Copenhagen, and that was pretty freaky as well. Just, you know, because nothing was working. And
does the vibe change when you change cities, when you're recording and you're going in?
Well, we initially did that because we were supposed to be building a studio, and as usual, when you build anything, the builders were 6 months late. So we had to start, so we had to go, you know. Oh, and then we found this beautiful, enormous mansion that we managed to rent off the Lord somebody or other, which he hadn't lived in for 20 years. The old boy had died there, and he'd inherited it, and it was had like 300 rooms.
Wow.
And 200 of which hadn't been opened for 50 years since the Second World War.
Did you go have a look?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And there were rats everywhere, and then we were sleeping there as well, conscious of the fact, you know, we're only occupying like a tiny bit of the house.
Wow.
And conscious of the fact that 2/3 of the house had been empty for that long, and there were rats running around, and there was broken furniture, and it was really peculiar. You know the classic, you know, furniture under the sheets and cobwebs, like it's all like that. It was absolutely freaky.
Like horror movie type, or
a little bit more sad than that, actually.
Right, yeah.
Like building a very, very large house and never having occupied it. Yeah, it was a very sad feeling, very empty feeling.
Did that affect you at all when you were?
It was kind of. It was pretty. That was like. Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did affect us quite badly. But then that's where actually, at one point, where it really started coming together bizarrely.
Your vocal style, there's a definite new approach to the vocal style on the album.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Well,
there's
lots of treatment stuff.
There is, and they're also cut up. It sounds almost like a stream of consciousness, but more...
It was actually literally pulling words out of a hat.
Really?
Yeah. I got a friend to buy me one of those top hats where you go, and it opens up.
Yeah.
And I just cut I was going nowhere with my words, so I just cut everything up that I had and cut bits out of newspapers and just threw it all in, and we'd just pull it out. And when something works, I keep it again, like the editing thing.
So the lyrics were the editing. Was there a thematic to the album that required this technique or this new approach?
Not conscious at all, no.
Not consciously.
But in retrospect, I guess there probably was, although I'm not quite sure what it is. I kind of always end up thinking of the themes or whatever being sort of certain colours or certain shapes, rather than it's about this or it's about that. Although I did have a kind of weird thing at the end where I kind of realised that a lot of it was about Kosovo.
Really?
Yeah.
Only at the end, though, did you realise?
I think, well, while we were in this big empty house, we used to get... we were quite near one of the air bases where the bombers were flying out every night. So at like midnight every night, they'd fly out in a long procession over the house through the valley. So we'd see them fly out, and then they'd come back. We'd still be up at 6 in the morning, and they'd fly back.
Wow.
Having bombed the shit out of.
Yeah. Anything.
Yeah. So that was. I think that actually.
That's disturbing.
Yeah, it was a bit.
There's one song on the album I think that stands out a lot, and it's one of my favorite, is Videotheque.
Yeah.
It seems like...
I had a big run-in with this journalist about that, because he just said, I don't get it, what are you trying to say? It's like, I'm not trying to say anything, that's the bloody point. the inspiration was really that I'd always wanted to do a disco tune.
Really?
Yeah, and that's my disco. I mean, from my point of view, my bit of it is, you know, I want to do a disco tune, but I want it to sound like house. I want it to sound like skyscrapers falling down.
Oh yeah. Your "I Will Survive"
Yeah.
is idiotic.
Absolutely.
That's very good.
It's definitely my "I Will Survive."
If there was an expectation on the band from, say, OK Computer, the Bends, would be that we would try and push the boat out a bit, push ourselves a bit, and I don't think people would be disappointed from that point of view with this album. But, you know, inevitably when you're coming up to release of a record, especially if you haven't released anything for about 3 years. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? You still have doubts and you think...
Yeah.
Where do you think you'll go musically in like 10 years?
I sort of like to think that any musician has license to go anywhere they want, especially now, because I think basically, I hope that basically the whole mythology of rock and roll stars and all that sort of self-destruction thing is going to stop because of the way that the music climate is changing, and I think that anybody should have access to any form of music that they like and be able to express themselves really, and not try and fulfill some sort of bullshit myth that fits with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that's inspired me most about like all the electronica stuff I've listened to, is that there's no sense of personality about it. It is what it is, and that's, you know.
Like a chameleon, almost.
No.
No.
Yeah, I guess it's just like, you know, just I think everybody should have the license to go wherever they feel, rather than like, oh, I'm a rock star, or I do electronic stuff, or you know, I'm a jazz musician. Sort of like, it kind of feels like because of the way that recording has changed and the fact that you can record cheaply and get it out there easily, and you don't need as much knowledge as maybe you did a few years ago, and you don't have to kiss a record company's arse, you don't have to kiss the music business arse, you don't have to do all that stuff. In 10 years' time, it will mean that things are a little bit freer and less about the myths that portray them.